Welcome on in, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules YouTube channel. Today is a special episode. We're doing the Trade Week wrap-up video. Trade Week has officially wrapped up as of 45 minutes ago. At time of recording, there's still little bits of information coming through, but we basically have it all. We're going to go through every single team, what they've gained, what they've lost, basically. Quick wrap-up of everything, what we think of it. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. We have footy content all year round, so join in the fun there. Don't forget to like and comment on this video as well. What do you reckon was the steal of the trade week? Let me know down in the comments. Without any further ado, let's jump into the Adelaide Crows, what they did so far in this off-season. First off, we'll look at their free agency. Couple wins. Isaac Cumming and Alex Neil-Bullen, both joining the Crows. Out goes Elliot Himmelberg, so nothing too major lost. Only one player, gained a couple there. And then in trade week, they've been a little bit active. A couple of trades made. Future third for a current round 3 pick with Melbourne. Nothing too exciting in that one. And then also last minute, finally got a trade through for James Peatling, a massive get for them, a big steal in my eyes at least. James Peatling, a future third and a future fourth for a future second. So really not too much difference there. Basically a third and a fourth, and James Peatling for a future second is a great get in my opinion. I think James Peatling is certainly worth more than a future second, and when you get a third and a fourth as well back, it's a pretty good get for them, in my opinion. So Crows, they get a tick, in my opinion. Very good week in the end. Get 3 players. Only lost their round 3 pick for this year and their round 2 pick for next year. But, I mean, they also got 2 round 3s for next year and a 4th, as well as the 3 players. Lost Elliot Himmelberg, but overall, not too bad of a week for the Crows. We'll jump into the Lions. No free agency moves for them, either in or out. A little bit of movement in the trade front, though. This is basically where they end up after trades with Carlton, St Kilda, Melbourne, Essendon and Richmond. A couple picks come in from Richmond, pick 42 and 43. They lost pick 20, which they were quite happy to do, gaining points for Levi Ashcroft, basically. Second round, pick 34 and 66 coming in from Carlton for pick 73 and a future second. Future second will probably be around about that pick 34, so ends up just being the same, roughly. St Kilda pick 27 coming in, and then some of the picks that they've already picked up from other trades going out. Melbourne, they got a pick 49 for Harry Sharp and a future third as well, which is Essendon's future third, I believe, coming via Melbourne. They lose their future third. They lost Harry Sharp, obviously, future second and a couple picks. So overall, stacked up on this draft, they've now picked up picks 27, 34, 42, 43, 49 and 66, as well as a future third. And what they gave up was Sharp, pick 20, pick 73, a future second and a future third. So a bit of movement there. Not too bad of a week for them, stacking up on draft picks and points basically for Levi Ashcroft and whatever else they choose to do over draft week. Onto the Blues. They gained Nick Haynes from GWS. Good get from them in free agency. In all honesty, pretty good. In the trade front, no players came in, but they get the future second from Brisbane. They also get pick 3 from the Eagles, which is huge. So pick 3, pick 38, pick 63, and pick 68. They all gained those ones. Going out, they lose Uis and Kennedy to West Coast and the Bulldogs, respectively. So a couple players out. I mean, not pivotal players. Certainly okay players, though. They also traded out pick 12 and pick 14 came in and left them again, but they lose pick 12, future first, future second, pick 34, pick 66, and as I said, Uyers and Kennedy. Okay. Nick Haynes is a good in. Pick 3 is huge. They moved up from pick 12 basically there. A few late picks, nothing too exciting in that rest of that. So future first and second gone as well, across to Hawthorn. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's okay. Pretty solid week for them. Maybe not as good as they were hoping, but at the same time, it's still pretty good. Pick 3 could be very good for them in this one. Certainly more chance of it being good than what they originally had at pick 12. So not the worst decision. We'll see how it plays out for them. Collingwood were semi-active. One big trade and one signing from free agency. So Harry Perryman joins them. A lot of people say maybe overpaid for him, but in the end, you got to take what you can get, and I think he will be a benefit for Collingwood. So it is what it is. And then the 3-team trade with Port Adelaide and Gold Coast. They get Dan Houston in, which is massive, 2-time All-Australian, probably currently the best player that was traded this week. Round 3, pick 58 also comes in from Port Adelaide. Going out, they lose 2 players, Joe Richards, John Noble, to Port Adelaide and Gold Coast respectively, and a future first and pick 36. So in the end, across the free agency and trade, they get Perryman and Houston in for Noble and Richards, and they also lose their future first, pick 36, and gain pick 58 this time. So I think overall, probably a net gain. Both their players, Dan Houston, 2-time All-Australian the last 2 years on the half-back flank, and Perryman, who's a bit of a role player, can play any role really, coming in and going out. Two slightly worse players in my opinion. John Noble certainly not as good as Dan Houston. I think the same can be said for Joe Richards and Harry Perryman. So net gain, I think, pretty positive week for Collingwood. Going all in on trying to get another premiership out of this window. Onto the Bombers. No free agency news there. A lot of draft picks there. As you can see, made a big deal with Melbourne in order to get points and not lose out on their first round pick when they pick up Isaac Kako. So they get the future first from Melbourne basically for pick 9 this year, so potentially around about the same pick. They also, as well as that, gave up their future third but got 2 second rounders and 3 third rounders from Melbourne. So a really good trade, that one, I think, in favour of the Bombers, in my opinion. They lose pick 9 this year, but they probably wouldn't have been able to use it other than on Isaac anyway. So it ends up being a pretty good deal for them. Jake Stringer left at the last moment. There was deal, then there was no deal, then there was a deal. It was an eventful last couple of days for Stringer, but he ends up going to the GWS Giants for pick 53. Pretty good week in the end for the Bombers, in all honesty. They'll be relatively happy with how it ended. Not a massive week, but got what they needed. Fremantle got their player eventually. They wanted Joe Bolton, they got him. They get him, pick 14 and a future third from Richmond. Meanwhile, the Tigers get pick 10, 11 and 18. So 3 big picks for the Tigers. Shy Bolton, a high pick, and a future nothing pick, basically. Go the way of the Dockers. Both teams probably very happy with this in the end, I reckon. Shy Bolton, pick 14 are both still pretty solid. Picks 10 and 11 are huge for the Tigers, as is pick 18. So I think overall, pretty solid trade for both teams. The Cats, no free agency news there. And up until the last couple moments, nothing on the trade front either. But in the end, they got their man. They got Bailey Smith from the Bulldogs. It took all the way to the last few minutes of trade week, but they got it done. So Bailey Smith comes in, which is huge for them. They also get pick 45 in. Out goes pick 17 and pick 38. Basically ends up being Bailey Smith for pick 17 and lose 7 picks from pick 38 to pick 45. So overall, really good net gain, I think, really. Basically, Bailey Smith for pick 20-ish. 15, 17, whatever, whichever way you look at it. But, yeah, pretty good get a mature-ish player that certainly doesn't need development, you know what he is, you know how good he is. So a really solid get from Geelong. I always thought it was going to go through. I didn't think it, the Bulldogs, or really the Cats for that matter, would let him slip through when he wanted to leave. Next up, Gold Coast Suns, pretty eventful as well. So they get Elliot Himmelberg in from Adelaide in free agency. Pretty solid get for them. As well as a very busy couple days. So John Noble and Daniel Rioli both join from Collingwood and Richmond, respectively. So add a few players there. Couple future firsts, Collingwoods and Port Adelaide's, as well as some late picks from Port Adelaide and Richmond. Meanwhile, going out, they lose Lukosius, which isn't great, but he wanted out, so it's not the end of the world for them. And Rory Atkins, which isn't basically a nothing loss, so nothing too drastic there. They also lose pick 13, 29, 50, 6 and 23. So they had to give up a little bit for Daniel Rioli, obviously pick 6 going that way. But a couple good players, all three are likely going to be in their best 23 this year. Meanwhile, losing one of their best 23 in Lukosius. They're also not that concerned with high draft picks, just because a lot of the players that they're aiming for in the draft are academy players. So it's more about points, having lots of picks. So those round 3s and 4 picks, so the pick 51, 61, 70, 76, are all very useful for them. Plus, they stacked up 2 future firsts. So Collingwood and Port Adelaide's first round pick next year to go to the trade table with next year could be very beneficial, especially if a team like Port Adelaide drops off. I don't think they necessarily will. I still think Port Adelaide are probably going to finish top 8 next year. But if it's a close competition, if they have a bad year and they have some injuries, they could drop off. Could be very, very good for the Gold Coast Suns. Next up is GWS Giants. So they lost 3 players. Perryman left, Haynes left, Cumming left. This is in free agency that I'm talking about. So 3 players out through free agency. No compensation for the Haynes leaving, but the other 2, they did get pick 16 and pick 21. So a couple of decent picks there for them. And then in trade week, they made 2 trades. Stringer comes in for pick 53, which pretty solid get, in all honesty. Pick 53 for someone that kicked 40-odd goals this year is pretty solid, no doubt about it. Adds a little bit more depth into that forward line, which is probably almost their best area of the ground, so I don't know if they needed it. But pretty good anyway, as a backup for Jesse Hogan / I mean, he's going to be in there. He'll pinch hit through the middle a bit as well, so not too bad. And then, in all honesty, I think they lost the trade here with Adelaide. James Peatling, a future 3rd and a future 4th, goes out. In comes a future 2nd. So, in my opinion, that's a big win for Adelaide. Not so much for the Giants. So, throughout the off season, losing 4 players, I think all 4 players in their best team, in all honesty, or at least 3 of them for sure, probably all 4. And only getting Stringer back in terms of players is not ideal. Pick 16, pick 21 will be certainly beneficial for them if they use them wisely, but I wouldn't say it was a successful off-season for the Giants. Obviously, still draft to come, so things could change. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out for them. Hawthorn, they get Josh Battle in through free agency, so good get there. Meanwhile, in trade week, they also got Tom Barrass in, so it took late into the day as well for that trade to go through, but they got it eventually. So they got their two ins that they wanted, Josh Battle and Tom Barrass. Adds a lot of depth to this team and a bit more experience because, I mean, They do have a bit of experience around the team now, but this just adds a little bit extra, and certainly in that back line, I think this is going to be huge for them with Tom Barrass. They also get a future first and second from Carlton and a future fourth from West Coast. Unlikely that the future first will be a higher draft pick. It's hard to see Carlton dropping out of the top 4 or 5, maybe 6 teams next year, but you never know. And meanwhile, they give up their future first, second, third, and this year's pick 14, which went to Carlton early on in the week. So overall, pretty solid. It's not the greatest bit of wheeling and dealing, but it's overall a success in my opinion. Battle and Barrass are certainly going to be beneficial for the Hawthorn Hawks going into 2025 and beyond. Next up, we have the Demons. A little bit eventful, in all honesty. They get Tom Campbell in from St Kilda through free agency, and Alex Neil-Bullen leaves them to go to the Adelaide Crows. They did get pick 28 as compensation, I think, for Neil-Bullen. I didn't write that there for some reason, which they ended up trading out to Essendon. They get one player from trading as well, so Harry Sharp joins Tom Campbell at the Demons, as well as pick 9 from the Bombers. So that will be beneficial, I think, for them. They'll be quite happy getting pick 9 there, as well as pick 46 and future third. Nothing too exciting on those two. Meanwhile, going out, future first round, so next year's first round, which, depending how their season 2025 goes, will be interesting. But, I mean, there's no reason to think that Melbourne can't bounce back in 2025. Like, 5-6 weeks to go in the season this year. They were a chance for finals. They kind of fell apart late. But you've got to also take into account that Petrarca wasn't there. If they can get their team fit and firing, there's no reason they can't bounce back into finals, and that's probably what they're aiming to do. A slew of other picks that mainly went to Essendon, but one also to Adelaide and one to Brisbane. So an eventful week, no doubt about it. Only the one player leaving, Neil-Bullen. 2 players coming in, probably role players, nothing too exciting. But overall, pick 9 is huge for them. And yeah, we'll see how that plays out for them. I think it's a solid week from them. Next up, we have the Kangaroos. Jack Darling joined them through free agency. So a bit of experience and I guess leadership up in that forward line for them could be certainly beneficial. He had an up and down year, Darling. There was times where I thought maybe he's at retirement stage, but then he had a few good weeks as well. So if he can bring his best to North Melbourne, it's not a bad get for them. They also brought in some experience through the trades. They bring in Caleb Daniel and Luke Parker, who certainly will be in their best team. I think adds more experience to them as well. It's probably the factor that they've struggled the most for years now, or the last 3 or 4 years. They just don't have that experience, and they've gone for it now. A lot of people would probably question it, but at the same time, there's not that much difference between bottom teams and top teams. I don't see this being enough to get them up to the top 8, but you never know. It's going to be... I think it improves their team for next year, and they haven't really given up that much. Pick 25, pick 44 isn't that much to give up. You've got 4 players in. So overall, I think a pretty solid week for them, in all honesty. It won't be a long-term saving for them, but it might lessen the pain over the next couple of years, and maybe these players can help develop the younger players around them a bit better as well. We'll see how that plays out, though. Next up, we have Port Adelaide. No free agency news there. One mega trade with Gold Coast and Collingwood. In comes Lukosius and Richards and Atkins, who was a little bit of a surprise, as well as pick 13, 29, 36 and 50. Going out is Dan Houston, future first, pick 39 and 58. So, I mean, Lukosius is a good in, no doubt about it. I've always been a bit of a fan of Lukosius. He doesn't always deliver, but he has the ability to be very good. I think he strengthens the depth of Port Adelaide for sure. Joe Richards, they went hard for him this year. They really wanted him. And they got him. Did they give up too much? Maybe. We'll see what happens. But overall, he'll walk into their lineup, in my opinion. He'll be good enough to be a small forward, like forward flanker, forward pocket sort of role for them all 2025 and for the next few years. Rory Atkins, I don't see him playing much of a factor at Port Adelaide. And if he is, it's probably a bad sign because it probably means that they've got quite a few injuries. Pick 13's a good get for them, no doubt about it. Pick 29, 36 can be beneficial as well. Pick 50, pretty much nothing. Losing Dan Houston is huge, so there's no doubt about it. As soon as there was talk that he was leaving, it was not a great sign for Port Adelaide. Two-time All-Australian half-back flanker the last 2 years. Certainly in the top couple back flankers in the competition. Had a great year, great couple years. So him leaving is not great for them, but at the end of the day, once a player wants out, it's pretty much going to happen most of the time, isn't it, these days? They also give up a future first to Gold Coast, which probably not that big of a deal, provided they can stay up towards the top end of the ladder. Also gave up pick 39 and 58, which aren't too big of a deal. Next up, we have probably the busiest team in this off-season, mainly through players leaving and picks coming in. We'll go with what's left the club for starters because that's a huge list. So they lost quite a few players. Jack Graham left them through free agency to go to West Coast. Liam Baker got traded to West Coast. Shai Bolton to Fremantle. And Daniel Rioli to Gold Coast. So 4 players out, all 4 key players on their list that would all be in their best 23 without a doubt. And a slew of late picks. So 32, 42, 43, 45, 51, 61, 70, and 76. All like from 30 onwards. So nothing too major in the picks department leaving. And a future third as well. So solid there. They were always losing those 4 players. It was all about what they could get back for them. They started with pick 42 for Jack Graham, which they on-traded to Brisbane. But then they pick up picks 10, 11, 18, 6, 20, and 23. They have a lot of picks going into this draft. If they draft well, draft smart, get lucky, they could really set themselves up for another big tilt in 5 or so years once these players develop. It's an important time to have draft picks, I think, in my opinion. You either at this point in time have to be hitting the draft hard like Richmond are. They're going to have a couple really rough years in all likelihood, but it could really pay dividends. With a new team coming in a few years' time, potentially another team after that. Draft picks now are huge because you're setting yourself up for that time. So even if some of these players do leave in a few years' time, you're going to get stuff back for them. So it's all about trying to get those picks up right now. The only other strategy, you can go the exact opposite, the way Collingwood have gone and just gone all in for now, worry about the future in the future. And in all honesty, with Collingwood's lineup and age demographic, you pretty much have to go all in at the moment because that's just the best opportunity for them, in my opinion, to get more premierships in the next 10 years. St Kilda's up next. They lose Josh Battle and Tom Campbell. They got pick 8 for Josh Battle, so that's a good pick for them, no doubt about it. They now have a couple early-ish picks. In the trade sector, out goes a couple picks in 27 and 45. In coming 32, 45, and Jack McRae just adding a little bit of depth into that midfield, I think could be huge for them. St Kilda, I fully believe, are capable of being a finals team. They played finals 2023. They had a really rough start to 2024, but they finished pretty strong. They showed some good signs. So I think Jack McRae joining the list is certainly not a bad thing. Losing Battle is bad. Tom Campbell, not as bad, but overall still solid enough. Ignoring the picks because there's not too much difference there. It's basically just pick 27 out, pick 32 in. But pick 8 and Jack Macrae sounds like an okay off-season, even if you are losing Josh Battle. Next up, we have Sydney Swans. They did no free agency, and up until the final moments had done nothing in trade week either. The last moment, they do offload Parker and Constantini. That's not how you say his name, but you know who I'm talking about. Pick 44 comes in, so in the end, basically Luke Parker for pick 44. It's not the greatest deal of all time, but it's pretty solid. Parker's wasn't even able to crack into their team early. Yes, he was injured early, then he got suspended, but before he got suspended, he played 3 weeks in the VFL playing really well, and they just didn't have room for him in the best team. In the end, he made his way back into the team after his suspension and played some really good football as a forward. At North Melbourne, he's not going to be just sitting in the forward line. He'll be playing a lot of midfield time, you'd imagine, and we'll probably see him back to some pretty solid numbers, I would imagine, next year for the Kangaroos. And hopefully, for the Kangaroos' sake, be a really good mentor for the young midfield. Pick 44, it's okay. We'll see what it ends up being, but it's not too bad. Up next is the Eagles, another team that was pretty eventful throughout the week. Pretty busy. They get Jack Graham in through free agency. They lost Jack Darling, but got pick 67 for him, which, I mean, isn't that exciting. It's pick 67. It's unlikely that there's going to be a star come from that, but you never know. But that will be for future years to find out, I guess. Coming in, they have a couple players. Liam Baker is a good get for them. Matthew Uys is also in. Good goal kicker. Not my favourite player of all time, but still solid gets. Adds a bit of depth and ability in the team. Also gets pick 12, pick 73, and a future first, second and third from Hawthorn. They do lose pick 3, which I know a lot of West Coast fans are not happy about, but if I was to say anything to the Eagles fans, I'd say stick by it. It's not the worst decision made this trade week, and I actually don't hate it, in all honesty. Pick 12, you still got a decent pick there. Uys comes in, adds a little bit of talent around the goals, and it could really work out for them, in all honesty. It's not the worst play. Losing Barras, I don't think they gained huge amount from Barras. In all likelihood, Hawthorn are going to be playing finals next year, so that future first isn't going to be that beneficial. But it's still okay. So they get Baker and Uys in. Out goes Darling and Barras. Jack Graham also came in. So overall, I think it's pretty solid. And I'd say stick by it, Eagles fans. I don't hate the decision to get rid of pick 3. Pick 3 is not a guaranteed player in any stretch of the imagination. I know Uys isn't that great, but he will add goals next year. And in all likelihood, he will probably go close to your second leading goal scorer. Probably behind Waterman. He'll probably end up with 30, 35, maybe 40 goals next season, which is nothing to be sneezed at, certainly as a small forward. So it's not the worst deal I've ever seen. One final team to look at, and it's the Doggies. They were quiet up until the final moments as well. No free agency plays. In the end, gets 1 player in, 3 players out, and a couple picks. So they get Matt Kennedy in from Carlton, which is an interesting play. Probably just almost a direct replacement for Jack Macrae, in all honesty. I don't think he'll be in their starting midfield. He'll be a role player in that regard, I think. They've got a lot of talent in their midfield. Picks 17 and 25, pretty good though, in all honesty. Got some good draft opportunity there. Do lose 3 players, and in all honesty, 3 pretty solid players. Caleb Daniels been on the out for whatever reason. Gets a fresh start at North Melbourne, and probably will make use of it, in all honesty. Jack McRae also, very similar vein, goes to St Kilda. Fresh start, should really make that opportunity work. Bailey Smith, he didn't play this year. He was injured, so even though he leaves, I don't see it as a big loss in regards to... They played finals this year. Could have finished top four with a little bit of luck here and there. And they did that without Bailey Smith. So they basically get pick 17 for someone that didn't even play this year. So it's not the end of the world for them there. I think it's a solid deal for both Geelong and Bulldogs. So I think both teams kind of end up happy, in all honesty. That is all 18 teams. That is all trades. That is all free agency. There's still little bits and pieces like delistings and stuff to go. We'll probably do another video in a week or two once all that's played out. And we'll have a look at all list changes for every team. Plenty of more content coming. There's draft week coming up in about a month, so we'll be covering that. There's 2 podcasts every week that go live on the YouTube and Spotify. One on AFLW, one on AFL Men's. All the way through till at least December, there will be 2 every week. After that, we'll probably cut it back to 1 a week, but we'll see how that plays out. Plenty more content, plenty of videos, plenty of stuff on the socials. Don't forget to jump in the comments below and let me know what was the biggest steal of Trade Week. I thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. This is All Aussie Rules, and we'll catch you on the next one.